It's Don here from the board. Thanks for coming along and checking out this video. Today we're going to be talking about rust removal. So rust is it's a natural reaction. It's an oxidation of iron into iron oxide, and it affects a lot of things. From basic tools, here's a hammerhead that's very rusty. We've got a little hand saw from my parents' garden tools collection that's also rusty. We got other things like clamps, and we've got some woodworking tool bits, my planes and saws and things. For example, here is a drill press that has a lot of rust and corrosion just with age. So it is one of those big deal things that stops us from being able to use our equipment, and also damages material, damages metals and things like that. Rust removal typically is done through two ways. We have mechanical rust removal, so using things like brushes and wire wheels, using sandpaper, using grinders and things like that to physically scour the rust off the surface to get back to clean bare metal before we try and treat it with things like waxes or oils and things like that to stop the moisture from attacking the metal. If you've seen some of the videos on the channel, you would have seen me fix up and restore some of my tools, and a lot of it typically is through physical rust removal. Chemical rust removal is where you use something that eats away either at the rust or at the metal, causing the rust to come off, and a very common way to do that is, for example, using vinegar. There are commercial products out there, so there's one, for example, called Evapo-Rust. It's quite expensive, but it's also really effective. Now, recently on one of my channels that I watch quite regularly, Wood by Wright, James Wright there goes on to test a concoction that was made by a gun restoration person on a homemade rust removal solution. Now, it doesn't attack the metal in the same way that vinegar does, pure vinegar does, or even plain citric acid, for example, for people who descale, coffee machines and things like that, but it rather uses what's called chelation. In the solution, the sodium citrate binds to ferrous oxides, the rust, to make it water soluble, and therefore it dissolves the rust, as an easy way of thinking about it, to come off the metal. It works very similar to Evapo-Rust, and it in itself is not a terribly dangerous or toxic chemical. It's also really cheap to make, and it's really simple to make, and so that's what I'm going to try today. Now, thanks to the Ballistics channel, so I'll have a link to James Wright's video in the description showing him demonstrating and testing it, as well as the original video, so you can check out both, and credits to both of them. I do apologize, I forgot the Ballistics channel's proper name, but they go into a lot more detail about it and show their testing. But there's basically three ingredients. You've got water, you've got citric acid as the acidic compound, and then you've got a carbonate. Now, the original video shows that you can use either sodium carbonate or sodium bicarbonate. Now, one is laundry soda and the other one is baking soda. There is a difference because one is a carbonate, one's a bicarbonate, so how much you use will be different. I have baking soda, bicarbonate, so I'm using the recommended formula here of 100 grams of citric acid. We're using 63 grams of sodium bicarbonate instead of 40 grams of sodium carbonate, and we're using 1 liter of water. Now, they do recommend using a surfactant as well added in to help break up surface tension, to help with dissolving the actual rust, the oxides off the metal. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to, instead of using dish detergent, I'm just going to use a bit of soap. So this is just a little bit of soap that I have that I use for washing up my hands after workshop stuff. So I'm just going to scrape a little bit of that into it, and that can be mixed up. Now I've got gloves, okay, so obviously safety, simply because we are dealing with a mild acid. Citric acid can be quite strong. It will prune your hands, it will start to try to eat your hands. I will be stirring with a silicone stirrer, so this is just one of my glue paddles, so it's non-reactive, but I mean I could probably stir with that as well. And there's no respirator required, because acid plus a base equals water and a salt and also hydrogen gas. Now it shouldn't produce that much. I am in an open shed with plenty of ventilation. I don't have a naked flame or heat, so just be aware of that, so you're not going to end up igniting a little puff of hydrogen gas. So my plan is we're going to mix up the solution, a liter, into a bucket, and then we're going to drop the hammerhead into it. We're going to stick the saw into it as far as it's going to go and see how that goes. And I have this screw from my Carter router plane. Now I unfortunately did damage it slightly trying to take the adjuster nut off it, but you see it appears to have been rust welded on. So hopefully by leaving this in the solution, it's actually going to dissolve that rust and allow me to free it up, and then I might be able to clean up the thread and use it instead of trying to get a replacement 1/4 inch coarse or 1/4 inch fine. I think it's fine for this one. 1/4 inch UNF replacement bolt thread, all thread, as well as a replacement nut that will somehow fit these dimensions. So that's the game plan. Supposedly half an hour, you should be able to see an effect within half an hour. I do have a wall clock over there, so you'll be able to see, it's just on 1 o'clock now. We'll be able to check that out. So when it comes to mixing liquids and dissolving chemicals, generally you always want to add the base to a water in small amounts, because it can get very hot. So we do soap making here at home, and we've also learnt from that obviously you got to go slow, because the water that you put into the container when you dissolve your hydroxide for making soap, for the saponification process, it gets hot enough to make the water steam. If we put it all in a bag, in like a really big batch, you could actually potentially get the water hot enough to scald. So this is all pre-measured out, by the way, so that's why it's just nice and easy. I've got a liter of water. Just repeating, I've got a liter of water, 63 grams of the sodium bicarbonate, and 100 grams of the citric acid. So we're just going to add this slowly in and dissolve it. So you might think, what is this doing on a keyboard channel? And there is actually applications in a keyboard context here. A lot of people actually go out looking for vintage keyboards. Vintage keyboards, when I'm talking about vintage keyboards, I'm talking about stuff from like the 70s, early 80s, where they were actually using steel in the construction of the keyboards in various places. So steel plates was actually not uncommon at all. There are actually modern boards also, more modern boards, I suppose everything from the 80s now is vintage, modern boards that use steel plates. And if you have one of those and it gets wet and it sits around, then it's going to rust. So I have a Philco Magis Touch 1 keyboard. The keyboard, when I got it, had evidence of a liquid spill because the PCB did have corrosion, some of the switches were a bit flaky, and there was actually rust underneath the powder coating of the plate, and it was flaking off. Now, people who also look for vintage keyboards will often go to e-recyclers and tips, waste tips and stuff like that, where the recyclers will have sections for electronic goods. And that in itself means that a lot of these are just sitting around, sitting out, getting wet, getting moist, humid conditions, and so on and so forth, which can cause rust to your plates and other components and chassis and stuff like that, solenoids and whatnot. So if you are into vintage keyboards and restoring them and you come across one that's really rusty, this could be a way for you to potentially fix that problem. Remove that rust, allow you to repaint it or coat it or treat that metal plate that has had rust removed. So now we should start to get some reaction. There's the hydrogen formation. It's quite a vigorous formation. Bit of ASMR there for you. It's very effervescent, that's for sure. We'll know when we hit sort of that neutralization point, because the reaction of the citric acid to the base will not be as vigorous, because it will all have been consumed and the majority of the acid will be somewhat neutralized. So citric acid, I think probably pH will be quite low, maybe around the 2-ish area. From what I've read, the end formation of the sodium citrate, which is what comes out as the salt of this reaction, is around a pH 4-ish. So it's not too bad. Now when I add the soap into it later as well, it will actually increase the pH further, because this kind of soap, rather than say dish soap, it tends to be a base as well. Okay, so I think most of that is done. Woo! Look at that. Having a good time. So you do want to make sure that you do have a container that's going to be able to take all that foaming. I think when James Wright did it on his channel, he was putting it straight into a container, and it caused the container to boil over, as it were, to foam out of the container and make a mess all over his bench. And I would rather not have that happen. So you can see now that it is definitely not as vigorous, because there's less of the carbonate ions in the solution to react with the citric acid ions. All right, so there you go. That is all mostly done. Okay, so there's still a little bit going on in here. I'm not going to try and sniff it or whiff it. That would be a bad idea. But let me just keep agitating that to make sure that it's all dissolved and mixed in. Taking quite a while for that to settle in. I'm not sure if there's any actual powder left. I can't see any. So hopefully that's all dissolved now. Probably just releasing dissolved gas in the actual solution. Okay, so let's just put that there. And what I'll do is I will just get this and shave some of the soap in there, which is a surfactant. All right, so now it is 10 past, yeah, let's give it a try. So I'm just going to put that in. This still has a bit of wood in there. Honestly, it doesn't matter. It's going to try and eat through as much of that as possible. Oh, there we go. And then we're going to put that bolt in. So I can see it's definitely doing something because there's a lot of bubbling happening. You can see it already. It's gassing up, which is pretty cool. So we're going to leave that now. I'm going to turn off the camera and I'm going to come back in half an hour and we will see how this is progressing. From what I can tell, it will turn the solution green. So the citrate, the sodium citrate binding with the ferrous oxide will end up with like a greeny kind of tint to it. And then we'll be able to check how much it's actually taken off, and then we'll go and rinse these off under some water and see how much it's actually cleaned off. So we'll be back very shortly with part 2. All right, so if I have a look at the clock now, it has been 29 minutes. I can tell you that the color of the solution is definitely changed. It's no longer as clear as it was. There's a lot more of this white stuff. I don't even know what that is. It could be reaction products from either grease or other things on it. It does not look like it's cleared up massively. So I'm not going to bother with the gloves. Just don't want to waste another pair of gloves. But if I just give this a light scrub with my brass wire brush here, it doesn't look like it's taken off heaps and heaps, but I mean, there is definitely rust coming off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep this going. I'm just going to leave it here and I'm going to come back probably in a couple of hours, maybe 3 hours, and we'll see how it's progressing, because it is still doing something. It's just not as vigorous. There are bubbles on the surface, especially on the hammerhead there, but if it works, it works. I would say that it will probably take time. So in the video from James Wright, Wood by Wright, they left the plane that they were derusting in there for 12 hours. Now in the ballistics guy's video, they had light sheet metal with rust on it, and that was what was being cleaned up very quickly. So how much rust is on it versus how much rust is here may actually be a very different story, and so therefore the results may differ. Now I didn't use distilled water here either, by the way. It's not demineralized or distilled water. I don't know how that affects the strength and the reaction products of this, because some of the acid and base may have reacted with, you know, things that were already in tap water. I do have distilled water available. My wife has it primarily for ironing purposes, but I didn't want to go and use that unless if I absolutely had to, because obviously it adds more to the cost, but we'll just see. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cover that so stuff doesn't go flying into it. Just going to go rinse that off, and we'll come back after a couple of hours and see where this all ends up. I'd say in 3 or 4 hours, might have some results. If not, I'll come back tomorrow morning. After, well, tomorrow morning, it'll probably be about, what, maybe, what's that, 12, about 18 hours or so, just under 18 hours. And we'll see how that does before I have to work. So, yeah. we'll be back with the third part of this video once I splice all the bits together and see how this solution goes. Okay, so we are back. It is 3.5 hours now, so yeah, just over 3.5 hours, and wow, we can see that it's definitely got darker. That has definitely got darker. I can still see that there are bubbles around, and there's a lot of this white stuff on top. It has slowed down, definitely, in terms of the streams of the bubbles, but it's really hard to say how much it's actually removed. So I'm not quite sure what I'm expecting here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to put on the gloves, and then I'll fish that stuff out, and then we'll take it over and scrub it under the water and see what it looks like and how much has actually come off, because it might have been a decent amount, it might not have been a decent amount. So let's get the gloves on, and we will have a look. Okay, I need something just to transport the bits. Some baby peppers will do the trick. Well, let's just put that there for the moment. I can kind of hear the hissing. All right, let's just put that down, and then let's fish. Wow. Okay, this one had a huge difference in appearance. That's for sure. It's still quite firm, still quite stuck. So let's just give it a scrub, and then we'll put it back in if there is no significant improvement. All right. So let's have a bit of, well, definitely just having some of that water, you can see a lot of it just kind of rinsed off. I mean, this is not very hard scrubbing, mind you, but if I compare it to just a light scrub on the bits that weren't submerged, I need, well, you can definitely see that there is more that has actually come off. I mean, that's actually quite heavy in terms of the corrosion products there, so maybe it has actually definitely done something to it, but it's because there's just so much corrosion that was on this blade beforehand that we couldn't really distinguish it significantly. All right, let's have a look at that. Wow, okay, so we can see that there's definitely more up towards the top here. Some of that kind of got some when it was splashing up and down, but it has definitely taken more off on that. Now this hammerhead, this stone brick hammer, has been fully submerged in the solution, and wow, that is actually, that's really good. I am pleasantly surprised. I can tell you from experience using 8% vinegar, 6% vinegar, something like that, 6 or 8%, was not this effective after 3 hours. So I would say could definitely sit in solution for longer, and would get better results, I think. I was probably a bit hasty to judge it, but I guess for really light surface rust that was on the steel plates that was used from the ballistics person's video, maybe half an hour was enough, because it was very light surface rust and not years of corrosion that is on these items here. Let's just rinse that off. And guess with any of this, if it's stubborn, then what you can do is you can put it back in, which is what we are going to do. We're going to probably leave that overnight and see if it will clean it up even more. So yeah, I think it's definitely made a difference. It's just going to be a question of how much of a difference by the time we pull it out tomorrow. Alright, so that was just a light scrub. You can see my wire brush is not very good anymore. It's taken quite a beating. And then this one here is, well, doesn't really have that much rust on it left, to be honest. But it's looking pretty good. Now I was kind of reading up on this, and sodium citrate on metal, it will eat the metal slowly, like it will actually take metal off, but it also does act as a rust inhibitor. So it's a bit of a catch-22 in that it will prevent rust, but at the same time it will, you know, eat some of your metal. So you want one or the other. Preferably you still have some metal left to protect from the rust. Okay, so that's just that. Go flush out some ants. They're just all weeds in the cracks, so it doesn't really matter. Not going to be too bothered if they get a little bit of unwanted love. Okay. Just rinse that off too. Alright, so let's hang that back up. That can go back. We're just going to put that one straight back in, I think. Now, is that going to get me the best exposure to liquid? Yeah, that will. If I tilt it slightly, then there we go. This one, just going to kind of put that back in. Top half's not too much of an issue, but what I'm going to do with this first, just going to see if I can get that to turn or not. Okay, let me just take these gloves off. Okay, wind it a few times on this side. Get that really nice and tight. Another bit of scrap. Try get that a few times over this side, maybe. The jaw's not wide enough to get onto it. Actually, I have some grips. Where did you go? I recently got a bunch of lock grips. Where did I put them all? The problem with starting to have a lot of tools now is where they're all living. No. Where did I put them? No. They're not. Honestly, don't know. I have to go find them. I have way too much stuff now. They're all clamps. Poop. Put them on the top. Not in there. Not in there. I don't think they're in there. No, these are all screws, bolts and nails. Oh, they're right in front of me. Wow. Okay, I'm very blind. Right. Here we go. Let's use those instead. I'm gonna. All right. Okay. And then nope. Nope, that is still not turning it. Now this side is It's too weak. No. Probably absolutely destroying the thread now, but it was likely anyway. Oh, look at that. Yep. Just completely gone through it, and I'm mulching it. Yeah. No, it's okay, but not great. Alright, well, that was not fantastic. I mean, look, I'm just going to stick this back in anyway, and we'll leave that run overnight now, and we'll see what that's going to look like in the morning. I mean, I was originally already going to have to get a 1/4 inch UNF all thread for that, but now if there's no improvement on that, well, that plan doesn't change anyway. So no big deal. All right, so they need to go in the bin. These go back on the shelf, and that'll be that. So we'll be back for the next part, section 4 of this video, because I'm just going to string them all together, and we'll see what this looks like in the morning after about 16-17 hours. We'll be back. All right, it is now just past the morning, and look at that. It has definitely got darker, and wow, I mean, the color of that blade is blackened, which means, I mean, there was still some rust on that after scrubbing it yesterday. That is a huge difference. That is crazy. I was not expecting that at all. I am going to, well, there's like all this rust particle on the bottom of the solution now. I'm going to put some gloves on. I'm going to fish those bits out. We're going to go scrub them under the tap again, and then we're going to have another look, because that's really exciting. So what's that? 15 hours? Is that right? 6 minus 1 is 5. No, 17 hours. So that's yes, because I can maths very well at 6 o'clock in the morning. So that was 17 hours. Wow. That did not look remotely that de-rusted yesterday at all. So there's been a huge difference in letting this sit for 12 hours. And I guess the thing here is, I mean, that's still stuck. Yes, that's a bit unfortunate, but that's looking, doesn't look like that's any better. But oh well, doesn't matter. Let's go and rinse these 3 bits off, and we'll see how that goes. As you can see, it's rained overnight. All right. Rinse that off.
Whew. This is insane. Oh, what is this black stuff? That must be the protective anti-corrosion layer that they talk about. But look at how clean that difference is of sitting in the solution. That is just absolutely bonkers. Wow. Okay, well, we're going to take that in and dry that off anyway, and we'll be able to, I suppose, really, I mean, even just lightly scrubbing that, a lot of that, the black stuff is coming off, and we can see we're getting down to the actual bare metal. So if we take it all off, wow. I am I'm genuinely blown away by how easy this is coming off. Look at that. I mean, whatever's remaining here is practically negligible here. Definitely after 12 hours in the vinegar, the rust is nowhere as softened as this. Just tell you, there is no way that the vinegar does this. I need probably a new wire brush, because as you can tell, this one is not in the best of shape. I mean, this hammer is probably going to rust up again because the timber in here is all soaked, so I do need to punch that out, drill it out, and then I'll be able to size it and make a new handle for it. I mean, this has not changed very significantly, but yeah, I don't know if it's been bent or if it's been cross-threaded, why that will not move. But I mean, is what it is. I will just have to get a new 1/4 inch core thread, I think. Alrighty. Okay. Let's get a bit of my rag. That is just crazy different. Such huge difference. So 12 plus hours, I mean that was 17 hours in the solution, has really come up good. Let's try this off first. Doesn't that look great? Oh, they've got the original pin is actually in there as well on that side from when they stuck it in to wedge the block. There's some kind of forging mark there. Man, that is nice. And try that off. Alright, so we can oil these. What I've got here is my rag, my oiler rag. It's just mineral oil. And we will give it a light rub on these to try and give it a little bit of a coating. I probably need to add a bit more oil onto this rag in a can now. But hopefully it'll just give it a really, really light coat. Keep that protected for a little bit. I can't really get into there because my brush is not really good. The bristles in it's all stuffed up. But there you go. There's that. There's that. And that's kind of good to be sharpened. Now, even though this has had a pretty tough life, I might try and soak this in WD-40 actually, now that the rust in it is gone. Because now that the rust is gone, it might have a better chance of penetrating and therefore might help loosen it up. I'll put some of that. That should be plenty. Lock that back over. So, I guess in somewhat of a conclusion, I'm going to have to say this stuff works. I'm going to say that this stuff is an absolute resounding success. Like, wow, you can see the shape of the hammerhead as that rust has fallen off it. I would say that one of the comments that my wife made when I was talking to her about this last night is that the temperature is a bit low right now, so it is less than 20 degrees, which means the rate of reaction is probably slower. So in a warmer environment, like potentially indoors, like that this had been done for both James by Wright and by the Ballistics channel, the rate of speed that the rust was being attacked by the solution may have been significantly higher. But because I'm doing this outside in the shed and it's a little bit cool at the moment, the lower temperature is going to be slower in its reaction speed. Noting that chemistry-wise, every 10 degrees is a halving or a doubling of reaction speed. So if it's less than 20 degrees, say 20 degrees versus 30 degrees, at 30 degrees it would happen twice as fast. At 20 degrees it would be half as fast compared to 30 degrees, roughly as a rough order of magnitude and reaction rate. So that's just something to consider. It is definitely far more effective and cleaner in what it does to the rust compared to a vinegar bath. So I'm very happy with that. I will definitely be making more up and then getting bigger containers that I've got and being able to soak pieces, but I just have to keep in mind it's going to take longer. And yeah, should come out really good. I should be able to reuse this quite a while because it's still quite clear from what I've been told in the videos, that this is good for quite a bit of use. All right, hopefully that has cover that up so it won't evaporate as fast. Hopefully that has given you some I suppose degree of confidence that another party has verified this solution, that it works, that it does remove rust, it does leave a black oxide protective layer of sorts, and that it will work within 12 to 18 hours in moderate temperatures. Cheap, easy to make, highly effective, very little elbow grease required to actually scrub the remainder of bits of rust off that, and it's not really done very much extra pitting or damage to the surface that I can see. So yeah, from a tool functionality point of view, definitely well worth giving it a try. All right, well, thanks very much for coming along and checking out this video. Love and appreciate any comments and feedback below. Thank you again to James Wright from Wood by Wright, as well as the Ballistics channel that originally developed this solution through their video. Hopefully you guys will get lots of love as well from people checking out your channels. Like, comment, subscribe. And until next time, happy clacking.